PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, PLD, and next to me, I have the hairiest of my sidekicks. Not my sidekick; he's my partner, but I kind of
How many sidekicks partners you got?
For Star Wars, only you, my friend, only you. Yeah, I mean, I got my fellow mediocre white dude, PJ Campbell, and one of them. Jarvie is one of them for class action, but for Star Wars,
PJ's not that hairy. PJ's like very fresh faced and very, very handsome young man. Jarvie looks like a Bond villain. Having like met him in person, like I could see Jarvie being like the next Bond and or Bond villain. He's a very sharp dressed man. Yeah. And then you have me, who's just the scruffy looking nerf herder.
Which I love it. I mean, you're a scoundrel through and through. Not quite Scoundrels Inc., but not quite the Kevin Smets, Brendan Hanna, Frankie Janish, Sean Sullivan, scruffy looking now nerf herders. But
although apparently I am a future friend of that show, so when that day comes, there will be, maybe my scoundrel level will rise even more.
Right. If I ever make it back out to LA, that'll be the time I'll be joining as the OG scoundrel, as they say. But that's not now. That's later on. Let's talk now. This is a great episode this week. I think it's a lot of fun we had. You pitched this idea to me. We are in kind of a weird pitching mode because our show, Holy Snokes, started. Our very first show was after the debut of Bad Batch Season 2. And so through that, we've been doing Bad Batch. We've been doing reviews of Bad Batch. We've been doing reviews of Mandalorian that came out. And now we are at a point where we have nothing left to review. Even last week, we had Visions we could review. We have nothing to review at this point, which is an interesting thing for us. It's a new thing. We have to come up with what do we talk about? I mean, the news is going to take us up a lot. We always take up a little bit of time with the news, which is always fun as well. But we need some topics of conversation. So I pitched. I was like, Matty, what do you want to talk about? And you came back to me with the top five or favorite Glup Shittos, which always makes me laugh. Because as I told you, we had this conversation off air. I'm always a little hesitant about exactly what a Glup Shitto is. And I'm not trying to be pedantic. I'm not trying to be anything like, I know what the meme is. I know what the meme is, but it's always trying to wrap my head around exactly what it is. So why don't you give me a definition and we'll go from there.
See, it's tough because it's kind of like a Glup Shitto to who, right? A Glup Shitto to, as you say, Joe Average, or to us, like diehard Star Wars fans who talk about Star Wars every week. The way I put it is kind of the way that a friend Alex Damon explained it to me. It's that character in the background that shows up maybe once or twice that you just cling to. You're like, okay, that's my favorite character, even though they don't have like a specifically prominent role. So for example, my favorite character, Darth Maul, is not a Glup Shitto because while he may be a tertiary tier character, he has a long story arc that we see play out over multiple mediums: comic books, movies, live action shows. Apparently, if this Crimson Dawn thing is a real thing, which I keep seeing about, but I'm calling bullshit on it till it happens. Animated shows, like any character like that, stricken from the record.
Right.
This is your Biggs Dark Lighters. So someone who like just shows up every now and again. Like Hondo Onaka, we do the Hondo watch, right?
Right.
To Joe Average, Hondo could be a Glup Shitto.
Absolutely, because from what I read, the original meme was, I forget the guy's name on Tumblr. I apologize to you, but he said the idea was the Star Wars fan would get excited about them coming back in the medium. Like, oh my God, holy shit, Glup Shitto is back. Look at that.
Lobot is the perfect example of a Glup Shitto.
Right. See, that's what I'm trying to. That's exactly what I mean. Like, and that's awesome. That's what I'm trying to figure it out. But it does always come back and struck me as: is it to Joe Average or is it to Ken Knapsack or Alex Damon? Like, Jabba the Hutt, technically speaking, to Joe Average might be considered a Glup Shitto because he's only really in Return of the Jedi, the one little brief moment in the special edition of New Hope. He also has some Clone Wars appearances. Phantom Menace. He has a moments in Phantom Menace. He's got the Clone Wars appearance exactly. But he's not necessarily a Glup Shitto exactly. It's because of that. But Biggs Darklighter, more of a Glup Shitto. So I will say I did struggle with that. So when you get to my list, you can call me out if you think it's not a Glup Shitto and I have some backups I'll go with. But I think I have some pretty fun lists.
It's the guys, if you were to go to Star Wars Celebration or like your local Comic-Con and they've pulled in random actor B who played Stormtrooper that did this one funny thing. That is a perfect example of like a really deep Glup Shitto. And there's like 5 to 10 people in line to meet this one person.
Right. Perfect. Okay. All right. Fair enough. That's what we'll go with. I definitely have a list. I have a bunch of people I kind of threw down as a word vomit. I have 5 and an honorable mention or 2. Some are funny, some are serious. But either way, I want to see them more. I see more of them. But we will get to that. That'll be the aftermath of our show. First, we're going to get down to some news bits. Of course, we always try to do the news, our weekly episodes, weekly shows. So we have a lot of time between our last episode and this one, and always stuff goes on. And we have quite a bit of news. I actually had a few pieces last night when I was curating it all from Star Wars News Net, which is where I go to get my major news sources because I like the way they curate things. It's usually very direct about this is fact, this is rumor, and and
this is horseshit.
Exactly. But we have a couple that actually perked up during the night that I kind of like right before we went to record. I was like, oh, I should add these. We should actually have at least some discussions on it. So let's get through some of them. A couple of few pieces here. I know actually it's funny. I'm going to call you out on air right now. You're like, do you have any WGA stories? I don't want to talk about WGA too much.
Okay. You are right to call me out on that. And it's solely because I've said all I can say. I've said all I can say. Fucking pay him. Just pay him.
Right. And I know, and that's a funny thing. When I say that you're tired of talking about it or you don't want to talk about it, it's not that we don't support the WGA. Just exactly that. We don't have anything more than we can add to it. I hope everyone knows if you listen to the show, we are very strong, positive supporters of WGA, and that's what we want to say about that exactly. Pay the fucking people and the DGA and SAG as well. Let's keep these things going.
I have it tattooed on me. I'm not going to take my shirt off to show you guys, but I have it tattooed on me. Fuck you, pay me.
Obviously, you don't want to get us ratings. You're not going to take your shirt off, but that's okay. All right. Well, the first piece of news, I actually have 2 bits of news that do involve the WGA that I found I wanted to just kind of mention at this point. The first one that they said was just an interesting piece is that I guess potentially if the production is in the UK, it might be unaffected by the strike to a degree, which might mean I want to say good news, but good news for the Acolyte, for example, which is producing now the contract. What the quote from the article had some quotes from the UK business side of things. I forget the name of I read it quickly and I forgot to write it down. They said, and I quote, if your contract was made under UK law and you were already under contract at the time the strike was called, you should continue to work normally and comply with the terms of your contract. Pre-existing work in the UK is not considered struck work by the WGA. If your contract was made under US law, you should follow WGA strike rules. So this could mean that the Acolyte, which is nearly finished with filming, could actually be unaffected because if they have a UK-based contract, which is possible because where they're filming, that could mean they don't fall under that same purview. This also, we don't know necessarily what this means for Andor or Stephen Knight's New Jedi Order. We don't know where the contractors are based because they film a lot in the UK. Is there anything more to say about that? I don't think there is. It's just an idea. It's just an interesting aspect of how the WGA is going to be affecting Star Wars media moving forward. And if the Acolyte can finish, then maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe that's what they'll push that forward further so we can have more content because we don't know how long this thing's going to last.
So from my very limited time studying law in college, I remember a lot of US contract law comes from UK contract law. Like
Mhm.
you guys use the UK contract law as like it still falls under the same offer, acceptance,
Right.
and I forget what the third one was. There's three stages to the contracts: offer, acceptance. I can't remember the other. I dropped out of college, guys. Don't fucking quote me on this. And I guess also like Lucasfilm is it's a US run, like US, it's an American business. Disney's
Right.
an American company.
Right.
I guess if you're a British actor, cool, means you can still keep working. If you're a British writer, you can still keep working. But I find it very hard to believe that some people who are working on a project, if you are that ingrained in a project and you are working side by side with these people, I find it very hard to believe that people will just be like, well, we're going to keep working
Right.
because your contract was written in the US and mine was written in the UK. So fuck you.
Right.
I find that very hard to believe that that's going to happen.
Right. I don't disagree. I found it interesting to note and interesting to
Hmm.
think about as far as that goes. The other WGA piece we did get was Tony Gilroy was attacked on social media by Abdullah Saeed, who's the writer of Deli Boys, and he basically
Of what?
Deli Boys. I don't know what that is necessarily, but he
Never heard of it.
stated that Tony Gilroy was potentially engaging in strike breaking because the idea was he wasn't writing, but he's still producing show writing, which is what we discussed before. What does that mean? Are you writing? Or if a writer is a showrunner and director, how do you take the hats and wear the hats and what do you do with that? And it seems like it's not only an us thing. That's actually a thing that's a problem with the industry itself. It doesn't seem like anybody really knows because it seems like
Yeah.
everybody has different opinions on it, and rightfully so. I got to be honest with you because like what determines writing? If you're a director in the editing field and you're changing entire story arc and how you're editing it, isn't that technically a form of writing because you're
I
writing a new
think I
story?
saw a thing. I think I saw an article that said like if you're a showrunner, you're still expected to be on set and working within a showrunner capacity because you're not technically writing, you're just working as a showrunner. But obviously, Tony Gilroy being A, showrunner, B, producer, C, writer, D, absolute badass, he, of course, he's just going to be like, no, I don't care. I'm not a fan of Star Wars. I don't care if Disney pull me from this. Cool. I'll just go make
Right.
another award winning TV show. That's
There.
like Andor's. I can't remember what the name of the award, but I saw it earlier. Andor's just won another award,
Yep. Peabody, I believe it was. Yeah.
A Peabody Award. Never heard of Peabody Awards in my life, but hey, Andor's been off the air for how long now, and it's still winning awards.
Huh? Very true.
Disney need. I think Disney probably need Tony Gilroy more than Tony Gilroy needs
Yeah.
Disney at this
I
point.
mean, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about specifically Disney. I know Disney specifically had pushed out a statement or a thing to the last showrunner saying we expect you to follow your contracts that aren't writing clauses, and that kind of definitely rankled the WGA and definitely rankled some people as well. So that's going to be something we're going to have to figure out at some point. But specifically to combat what was said about him, Tony Gilroy wanted to explain or at least talk to the whole Hollywood Reporter, and he said specifically, I discontinued all writing and writing related work on Andor prior to midnight on May 1st. After being briefed on the Saturday showrunner meeting, I informed Chris Kaiser at the WGA on Sunday morning that I'd also be ceasing all non writing producing functions, Gilroy said. When reached later on, Kaiser, the co chair of the WGA's negotiating committee, confirmed this conversation with Gilroy. So he is no longer doing anything non writing wise. I believe he stepped away, will not be on set anymore. Now, I'm glad he's doing that in solidarity with WGA if that's something that he wants to do, and obviously we support the WGA. I just don't know what that means for Andor now, and I kind of feel like maybe Lucasfilm should take a beat and maybe we pause on Andor season 2 until everything is figured out because I don't think we want to push forward with anything big while Tony Gilroy is not here. He's the man that's in charge. He's the one that's been shaping this the entire time. Let's go and do pre-production stuff, photos like that, maybe like set stuff or whatever. But like let's pause it. Let's pause it and see what we can do.
So shout out, I got to shout out Dan Mo because Dan Mo explained this in a way that my idiot caveman brain could not even begin to vocalize as well as he could. I strongly suggest anyone who is interested in the WGA strike action and everything, go watch his video because he broke it down really well for me. It's kind of considered this like scabbing, like it's a big like no, like if you're if you are a writer taking on any duty period, it's kind of like a black mark on you in the business, and you're kind of seen in a very
negative light.
A very negative light. And I think Tony Gilroy, he's not someone who I think cares about what a corporation thinks. I think he cares more about what his peers think.
Yeah.
Than the corporate. I think he's probably more interested in being able to sleep well at night.
Yeah.
Over anything. And he's even said it, like the Andor scripts are pretty much done. What else is there to go? Like the big thing that this strike seems to be over is the use of AI writing when writing. That seems to be what the big thing is, and studios don't want to budge on using AI. If Disney and Lucasfilm are so blind to think that AI could write Andor season 2 better than Tony Gilroy, go ahead.
No, please don't. Please don't.
No, go ahead. Like, what's your subscription base for when your shows fucking suck?
Yeah, that's why I don't want to see that, because I want to see Star Wars succeed. So don't do that, Disney. Please don't do that. They haven't tried it.
Hey, if they do, it's on them.
I agree, but I don't want to see it happen.
We still got Doom.
Pause it. Pause it. Let's wait for it. I want to see it when it's ready. But that's fine. All right, that's our WGA talk. I'm going to get over that. Let's go talk about something more less upsetting to a degree, I think, and more fun talk, if you will. Let's talk about Dave Filoni was quoted as stating his Star Wars film will be built around an era-defining event. He stated, culmination, as far as being the culmination of the quote-unquote Mandoverse, as we call it, the New Republic verse movie. Culmination is an interesting word. The way I look at it, there are small stories, and then there's the big story of the day, too. A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi tell the important parts of the tale that really define the history of the period. There are all kinds of sub-stories underneath that. We've been building all of these sub-stories. To me, a theatrical experience has to have a big idea, a monumental moment in a time period that changes what is happening. What Tony has done in Andor and what we did in Rebels, and everything then changes when Luke blows up the Death Star. You're looking for these moments to define an era, and that's what the films really should be about, whether it's characters coming together or a defining moment. He went on and said that he had an idea for what this big event is, and he's been setting it up for years, but he won't reveal what it is yet. Because I have ideas, of course. I'll not tell you what they are. There are little things along the way that I've built across different mediums, all in preparation for things that come later. Now, what is your reaction to that? Let's start with you.
So he's essentially saying what we're already thinking of. We're going to get an Avengers portal scene where all the characters show up. That's gonna be the big moment.
I don't know if that's the case, because I mean, he said before this isn't going to be an Avengers-like moment. He's kind of stated that before. I kind of feeling it's more going towards the idea of we're going to have a big, like a galaxy-defining moment in terms of a big event. It would change how, like, everything that happens in this film will have ramifications through every other piece of media. Like if Andor and Rebels is kind of basing everything around leading up to the Death Star, this is everything that's leading up after Return of the Jedi, and maybe this is leading up to Episode 7, to where we are at Episode 7. This is that kind of like pinpoint moment where we have some kind of big something. Now, the fact that he has this idea and he's been setting it up for years, that was the most intriguing part to me, because it makes me want to go back to Clone Wars, Rebels, Mando. What has he, little pieces? Because, honestly speaking, the funny thing is,
Luke blows up the first Starkiller base.
Potentially something to that effect. I mean, we have different Death Stars. We might as well have another Death Star at this point, Death Star type thing, a transitional Death Killer base or Star Death base. It's in between Death Star and Star Killer. But like, I remember watching Rebels, for example. I remember the first time I watched through Rebels, it was a point where every episode of Rebels had something in it. So even if it was a enhancement episode, as we call it, and people were dismissing it as filler, there's always something important in there that got talked back or got brought back later on to be a big moment, like the whales. Purgle was a random episode, came back at the end. Things of that nature. Is that what he's doing on a larger scale? So what has been dropping in Rebels, in Clone Wars, in Mando that's going to lead to this type of event? Obviously, Thrawn is the big baddie, as we've noted, but like, and we'll talk about that because there's another Dave Filoni article coming up. But I'm very excited to almost go back to everything he's done and go, what's going on here?
I ain't even gonna try and guess at this point. The mind of Dave Filoni is a place I would be too scared to go.
Fair enough.
Because he's got all those weird, wonderful ideas floating around in that noggin underneath that cowboy hat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure whatever it is, I'm sure it's gonna be fun.
Fair enough. To continue a different article, also from Empire, I believe, the magazine that's coming out, Dave Filoni was talking about Timothy Zahn. He stated, or Timothy Zahn and Thrawn, he stated, Thrawn is definitely the bad guy in the Republic era, in my eyes. Mm-hmm. When Timothy Zahn wrote Heir to the Empire, Thrawn became this very iconic villain because he was different than anything we'd seen before. He wasn't another helmet-wearing, lightsaber-wielding bad guy, you know? There's a lot of pulls to make characters that are like Vader because it's so iconic. But the boldness that Tim had was to make sure somebody that wasn't like that didn't have those abilities, but could fight in a different way. In the words Star Wars, of the war part of it, him being a Grand Admiral, a leader, a military strategist, a Moriarty archetype, someone that will outthink you, out-strategize.
That's a good comparison. I never thought of that.
Oh yeah,
Thrawn and Moriarty. That's a really good comparison.
It really is in a way, because the funny thing is, I always pictured him as like Sherlock Holmes, an evil Sherlock Holmes, and that's pretty much what Moriarty is.
Who is Sherlock?
That is that's what to figure out, I guess. I'm hoping it's going to be Talon Card, but that's my own little thing. Being a Glup Shittos, maybe. But I don't know.
Let it go. Just let it go.
But he says someone that will outthink you, out-strategize you. That really resonated. He's a critical player in this time period. We're fortunate to have that character, and fortunate to have Lars Mikkelsen playing him. Yeah, so I agree. I love Thrawn for that reason. That's why everybody likes Thrawn. He's different. Even my son, who I said we're watching Rebels now, he was finally introduced to Thrawn. He's like, God, I love this guy. He's so smart. He's so different. I love this guy. I think that's what everybody likes about him. And I'm excited that we're getting him in this live action universe with Lars. And it feels like Dave has a real handle on who he is at this point.
Yeah, I'd even say Dave's got a better handle on him than Timothy Zahn at this point.
That's a hot take, but I don't disagree. Because the question we always have with Timothy Zahn stuff, I've read his 6 canon books now, in the original books. I mean, when you're writing a canon book about a character, you kind of make them the protagonist, but that can also change how you're looking at it to a way. I mean, because like if he's like a good guy to a degree in those books, because we are supposed to kind of want to root for him to see how he gets where he's supposed to be. But yet in Rebels, he was definitively the bad guy. I guess it all depends on how you're looking at it. I think you can marry them. It just depends on how it goes.
Really. It's the Scarface quote, right? It's like, you need people like me. You need to point and say, that's the bad guy. Like, that's Thrawn. I don't want making him like this empathy, like someone that I feel empathy for, and like I'm like, man, you made a really crappy deal with the devil, like, but you did what you had to do. That kind of takes away the coldness of Thrawn. Thrawn is supposed to be this cold, calculating, 3 steps ahead, no emotion. Like the only time we ever see him let out emotion is when he's taken out on security droids when he's training. Like that. I don't want to feel anything for Thrawn other than, whoa, that dude's a badass.
Yeah, agreed.
Like when did we? I get that Star Wars is a redemption thing, but it seems now like every villain, be it DC, Marvel, Star Wars, there has to be something that we connect to them on a human level. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're starting to lose in modern day. This is just a modern day storytelling thing. We're starting to lose that sense of white hat, black hat. You know, like the old Westerns, like the hero, the outlaw wore the black hat.
Right.
The sheriff wore the white hat. So you knew that was the bad guy. That was the good guy.
Agreed. And we definitely have a little piece of that at times. And it's understandable when you do the kind of media that we do, all the different sorts of media, that the lines are going to kind of blend. together at times. But you're right. Sometimes it tends to have a solid, defined line, and I think Dave Filoni understands that and gets that. We can still have sympathy or empathy to the villain to a degree, understand where he's coming from, but as long as he's still definitively the villain, then that's what ends up being Star Wars, good versus evil, so to speak. Another interesting quote from that same article was that actually he was talking about going into filmmaking, being a film director, of directing a film. And he was asked about that and how it came to be from animation to live action to a film. And he was asked about whether he assumed it was going to happen eventually. He said, "I don't assume anything. I don't think that I deserve anything. Kathy, upon seeing my work in the live action realm, was like, Dave, we have to have you do a movie. My goodness, a person like that telling you that is an amazing thing. But I always look at myself and say, well, am I ready to do that? I appreciate that, and I think she would know. But it's got to be the right story, and it's got to be the right group of people backing you. A big reason why I felt confident going into live action at all was because Kathy was here. She's been a very big supporter of me all along the way. So it's a great moment. I immediately think of the responsibility. I immediately think of the job it's going to entail. I want to make sure I can do a good job." The first time I ever remember as a kid noting the term directed by was directed by George Lucas. That's the thing I never lose sight of. This is George's galaxy. I just try to learn as much about it so I can execute on it faithfully, hopefully expand and add new things with everybody else. What a fun galaxy it is. First off, I just want to respond and say, doesn't seem like Dave has any issues with Kathleen Kennedy, and that's just good to know. She's very supportive of him.
Sorry, butthurt Star Wars fans. Looks like, look, we say this all the time. Kathleen Kennedy, she's very good at what she does as a producer, and like pulling the right people together. She's very good at that. Like her track record speaks for itself. You may not like some of the creative decisions she makes. That's fine, but you cannot deny her track record. You just can't. I'm sorry, and if you do, you're an idiot.
Agreed.
But and I don't want this to sound morbid. I get what Dave's saying, that this is George's galaxy. This is, I want to pay respect to him. We need to remember that one day George isn't going to be here, and George isn't going to be. You're not going to be able to turn to George. He's not going to George as much as we would love. George isn't going to appear as a Force ghost. To tell him, Dave, your training is not yet complete. You need to stay on Dagobah for a little bit. There's going to come a time when Dave is going to take the reins. He's gonna step into that role, and there's going to be someone behind him that's going to become the Dave to his George. This is just a natural progression. But from what I've seen of the man, I've never met him personally. He seems like a very humble guy. He doesn't particularly enjoy being in the spotlight. He would rather be in the studio writing his stories and playing with his characters.
I agree. I find it. I like what I'm hearing, is the fact that he's happy what he's doing. He's happy he has support he has, and he can only succeed if he has that support behind him. So he has that support. So bring on Ahsoka and bring on the movies, and let's see what happens at this point.
I trust him with it more than I do anyone else.
Absolutely. I do agree 100%. Last quote I want to talk about from this article came from, they had a couple of good quotes if you want to read it on the Star Wars News Now. They had some quotes from Mary Elizabeth Winstead. One quote from Rosario Dawson, which I want to mention specifically, says, "I like that there isn't any structure to this. There's no boss over them. There's no one telling them that they have to do this. This is a carryover from Rebels. These are people who are true believers, have put themselves on the line, sacrifice everything to be together, and who create this chosen family on this mission who decided they needed to be on. That makes it very special. The immediate connection between them is such a strength because you trust that there's a history there. You feel it. For the ones who've been anticipating the story to go on for a long time, they're going to feel really happy." Yes, Rosario, give it to me. Give it to me now. This is what I wanted to hear.
That woman is a PR nightmare.
She really is.
That woman is a PR nightmare. Someone at Disney, I reckon anytime she does an interview, she gets an email or a phone call from Dave just saying, "Shut the fuck up."
Respectfully, shut the fuck up.
I don't even think there's a respectfully. I think it's just a shut up. You're giving too much away. Do you know how deep these Star Wars fans go? You could post a tiny little like a corner of a page of the script that doesn't even have words on it, someone is going to find a way to like hold that up to a UV light and determine like every single page that's been written. That's the level of like insanity that some of these fans go to. And she's just there, just like, yep, if you wanted that story to go on, well, guess what? You're gonna get it. It's just like
I can just see Dave Filoni being like, interesting.
Have you ever seen him on stage with Favreau?
Yes.
The amount of times he's saying to Favreau, don't say that. Like, shut up.
Yeah, it's like he's got to teach the word interesting to them very much. That's how you deflect any question that comes your way. You can just sit back and go, interesting question. And
Rosario's like NDA is more like ND's nuts.
I love it. I love that she's a PR nightmare to a degree, to be honest with you, because I love getting little clips from here.
It's the Kevin Smith influence.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's 100% the Kevin Smith influence on her. She's going to say what she's going to say. She loves this character. She loves this story. She loves being where she is, and she's bad enough to get away with it. So I'm
Can you imagine if they gave Kevin Smith a Star Wars project?
Oh, dude, I love
Do you think that man would be able to keep his mouth shut about it?
No. Oh God, no. Oh God, no. I don't think at all. A lot of time
He blows up other people's projects on his podcast, like friends of his that are working on stuff. He's like, I know a guy that's working on this, and let me tell you, it's like, Kevin, I love you. Shut up. I want to watch it, dude.
But you know what? I can't deny a guy's passion, so I can't. I understand it completely. So yeah. I love it.
I would never take that away from him. Like Kevin Smith's probably the most passionate filmmaker, like storyteller there is.
And you know what? Speaking of that, give him something. I think he would do a great job. Like he's always hesitant about doing something Star Wars wise because he's not a director. He's like not a special effects guy. But with the way that we have built out Star Wars now, we could afford, I think, to let him get a Disney Plus special or something where it'd be kind of his humor, his thing, Clerks on Star Wars kind of thing.
We do the Christmas special, but with because obviously he's just done He-Man, right?
Right. Yep. Right.
So he's going to be used to like working with like weird creatures and everything. Get him to do the holiday special.
There you go. I love it. It's good that he'd have it.
You know, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon would be in it.
They'd be stormtroopers. They'd be like their own stormtroopers in the way.
That's a thing. We should. That's an episode we should do. We should pitch a Kevin Smith
Star Wars.
We'll get our friend PJ Campbell on.
There you go.
So we will pitch our own Kevin Smith
Star Wars special
project. Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. We'll do that at some point in the future.
I love it. All right. We got a few more news bits to go through. Kathleen Kennedy Kathleen Kennedy spoke to Christopher Ford and Jude Law about Skeleton Crew, and they kind of talked to us about things about Skeleton. Christopher Ford, being the co-creator of Skeleton Crew, said the way Kathy explained Amblin to us was that they never thought of those as kids' movies. They just happened to have kids. All the stakes are as real as possible. The kids think they're in Andor, which is great concept. I think conception being that's phenomenal. Kids version.
Goonies isn't really a kids movie if you think about it. E.T.'s okay. E.T. maybe kind of, but Goonies definitely ain't.
No, and that's what it is. It's like it's an adult. They actually have stakes in there. There's actually life and death moment, but the kids are the ones that are in charge, and so that's what makes it a little bit, not easier to handle, but easier to kind of get your way in, get your way into the viewpoint of them.
Everyone I've spoken to seems to be under the impression, and I'm the same, of that this is going to be Star Wars meets Stranger Things. And Stranger Things is definitely not for kids.
Oh, God, no. Jude Law went on and said they need guidance, but they're vulnerable. And so throughout the people they meet, you question all of them. Is my character nice? Is he not? You just want them to be all right and get back home. But if you know John and Chris's work, you know that the kids aren't always safe. Seeing this galaxy, this world that we've all grown up loving, and the jeopardy, the divides, the heroes, the villains through the eyes of children is brilliant.
You know who I want to show up in Skeleton Crew?
Who?
Haja. Camille Nanjiani's character.
That would make sense. I would love that. That would actually make a lot of sense.
If he shows up and he's like him and Jude Law are like fake Jedi con men. Oh, that would be so good.
Well, it's because of Jude Law. It's funny you mentioned that because Jude Law is a Force user. That's been
Exactly.
Definitively, he is actually a Force user. They never actually said he's a Jedi. They never actually have said he's a Jedi. Some people kind of made that jump to say he's a Jedi or fallen Jedi or former Jedi, but that's not necessarily true. We're at a time frame in the Republic, timeline in the Republic galaxy that we don't know where he is. He might just have grown up a Force user, never, because there's no Jedi around at that point. They never actually had gotten him into play because they weren't around to adopt him. Maybe he's grown up on his own as just a Force user, and maybe he turned to a life of crime because of that. I think it'd be actually
He
very
just has
cool.
magnets up his sleeve, like Haja did.
Potentially. I kind of think it'd be more. I think the more interesting thing would be if he was a Force user, but because there was no Jedi, because that's interesting to discuss. There's no Jedi to adopt Force users anymore. We have the Inquisitors hunting down Force users, but they don't know every Force user. If there's one that made it so far along in life that they survived the Inquisitors, they survived everything else, but they never really wanted to be part of the rebellion. Some of them probably would go, you know what? I'm just going to use the Force to rob banks and to con people, and I can use the Force. Not necessarily like evil mustache twirling domination world plans, but he's a scoundrel. Imagine like Hondo, imagine Hondo with the Force kind of thing.
Oh god, that would be amazing.
That's the kind of thing
that needs to be a show.
That's kind of what I'm hoping Jude Law is to a degree. A little bit of kind of a scoundrel down and but he used the Force for his own benefit. But maybe he ends up having that harder goal when the kids come around. And the
Hondo just comes walking in front of Obi-Wan and he's like moving stuff around. He's like, "Hey, Kenobi, look what I can do."
Exactly.
And Obi-Wan's just sitting there like, "Oh my god,
what do I do now? What do I do with this guy?" that to me would be a brilliant way to do it. I really hope that that's what we get. We get a scoundrel Jedi in the form of Jude Law.
Rael Avaros.
Exactly. Someone to that effect, even more so, even more than that.
But that's got to be McConaughey. If there's going to be someone playing Rael Avaros, it's got to be McConaughey.
All right. Let's do it. Okay, next up, we got a quick note that we have, like Jeff Snyder, we talked about his take last week, but more sources have come out and agreed that Lucasfilm is already moving forward on Star Wars Visions Volume 3. No word on which animation studios are involved yet, but some of the sources are indicating that they've already started to work on their content even before the reports were made before the reports made their way online. So it's already been in the works for a bit. And I believe it because I think they've had a lot of fun with this kind of thing. I think the Visions has been successful enough to the point where it'll be worth it. It might not be the gangbusters hit that like something like Mandalorian is or anything like that, but for what they have to, for the cost, it seems like it's a very beneficial win for them. But I'm excited. I'm happy there's a season.
The one they need to get is the studio they've already worked with. I wasn't a big fan of this short because it was like 60 seconds, and I did think it was kind of shit. Studio Ghibli.
Oh yeah, that would be great to see. It wasn't even that.
That's the one.
It wasn't that. I agree. Like it just wasn't consequential at all. That's the thing. It was. I don't think it was actually shit. Is the wrong word to describe it from my.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't consequential.
Maybe shit was the wrong word for me to use. I was just like, what the hell? What that?
Either way about that, the problem was it was that like it was announced. It has announced. Oh, Studio Ghibli is working with Lucasfilm. I was like, oh, what the hell can they possibly be giving us
on a Grogu short? I was
like, that's fucking awesome.
What?
And then it was just kind of this quick little cutesy thing, and like it was good for what it was, but like it's like, oh, that's not worth the hype. Though.
Yeah, it was good. I was just like, don't tell me we're doing Star Wars and Studio Ghibli with Grogu, and then you give me 60 seconds of Grogu playing around with a little dust ball. Like, give me something.
Okay, next up we got more Kathleen Kennedy talk. Obviously, this is talk from Celebration, but this is the quotes that had. Some of them are just expansions on some quotes they had before. They don't really say a whole lot, but it confirms a couple of things. And one specifically I'm picking up. She was asked again about Rian Johnson, and she came out and just said, Rian and I talk all the time. He just keeps getting more and more successful, and it keeps moving things back further and further. One day we'll figure this out.
Anyway.
I usually think it's going to happen. I think
I say this every time this comes up. He's going to go and he's going to make more more Knives Out movies.
I agree.
He's going to go win more awards, and and I don't blame him for doing it. Be like, listen, Kathy, I love you. We work great together. I ain't stepping back in that cesspool when I can go make movies that everyone loves.
Maybe, but I mean, if her conversations from Ryan, he's been very apt about wanting to jump back in there at some point too. He is very busy right now. I don't think he's going to do it anytime soon. But I kind of have a feeling that eventually the Glass Onion thing will slow down a little bit. He'll kind of make it 4 or 5. You know what? I've made a bunch of Benoit Blanc. I kind of want to try something else a little bit. Go back and see what I can do. Star Wars with in a galaxy which is all mine to deal with. I think that's what's going to be the key. Like instead of doing an episode 8, he can go and this is my story, my time, my view with no ties in anywhere else. I think that will be something that he is attracted by the idea because he loved doing episode 8. He always says he had a great time in episode 8. He always talks about episode 8 doing it. But I have a feeling that there's a small part of him goes, well, what can I do if I have complete control over the story and where we're going? I think that'll intrigue.
Will he have complete control though? That's the thing. Will he have complete control?
I think he will. I think because him and Kathy worked well together, and she really likes what he does. Obviously, that's the one. If you think about it, we never heard one bit of problems behind the scenes at all in all of that production. I mean, every other one we've had at least some kind of issues, but behind the scenes that have gone out. This went perfectly according to all the trades and everything else. So I think Kathleen will be like, yeah, go ahead, Ryan. You can do whatever you want. Because at that point, we'll have enough out there as well. It's not like a situation where we only have so many Star Wars. But we have, by the time we get there, it'll be 5, 6, 7 Star Wars movies, a bunch more Disney Plus shows. They'll have room to let him do his own thing. So I think that's what we're going to go with.
I think he's smart to say, I'll do it one day. I think he's smart to say, because it's just, on a business standpoint, it's a smart. Why would you turn down the bag? Why would you turn down a second crack at the Star Wars bag? Like, Of course, he's going to say those things. I'm just like, if I was him, I'd be like, if maybe one day, if I get the itch to do it, but right now I'm cool where I'm at. I don't want to go back anywhere near this for a good long while. My only fingers crossed. Pray to the Father, the Daughter, and the Son of Mortis. I pray to the Mortis gods. Do not let Zack Snyder anywhere near Star Wars.
I
don't.
It's hard. I get why you said that, but I understand that it's more about the Zack Snyder strong Zack Snyder fan base. That's more of the issue. I don't think we will because Zack Snyder's already making a Star Wars. He's making Rebel Moon, which is already something that's basically was
supposed to be Star Wars, wasn't it?
That was his Star Wars pitch, and he decided to make it on his own. I don't know if it was him saying he wanted to pull it off, or if Lucasfilm said no. I don't know. I actually really enjoy Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, completely on his own, like without the.
What was the movie he made afterwards? The Vegas one with Batista, with the zombie one.
Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead. I like that movie.
Yeah, I have liked every single one of his movies. Some people don't, but I think visually speaking, he's an amazing filmmaker visually. I get why some people didn't like his DC take. That's fine. I enjoyed it. Man of Steel is one of my favorite Superman movies of all time.
He loves poking the bear with the fans, and I'm like, bro, over here, we don't need that.
I get that, and so I understand why you're saying what you're saying. There's a small part of me though, just like complete independent, like, man, but it'd be kind of cool to see that kind of visual take in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, but
get someone who's influenced by Zack Snyder to do it.
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. A few more interesting quotes I want to say from Kathleen Kennedy. This one kind of goes with what we said last time, but adds something different to the wrinkle. Lando is still on the books, and Rogue Squadron is still on the books. We just want them to be great. You know what I hear, and I know you're like, I'm looking at you already. You're frustrated by that, and I get that. To me, I love it. The fact is, they're saying, I mean, because if it wasn't a possibility, I think with these batch of interviews that she's done, I feel like she's trying to open up and be more open to the fans about what's going on. And I really do feel like if it was completely closed off, she would say, no, we tried to work on that, it didn't work, we moved on. She's not saying it's in the works. She's not saying we're working on this now. She's saying that we have not dismissed that completely. We are not actively working on it. We don't want to do anything. It kind of goes part and parcel of what she said before. We don't want to put anything out until it's ready. So they're not ready to work on. And when we do get a chance to work on it, when the time is right, when everything is set, we will revisit them. So the idea is They are still there. The ideas are still turning around there. Might it be a long time before they happen? Might it never happen? Absolutely. The fact is, they're not dismissed entirely, which means I can go, okay, maybe one day we will get a Lando. Maybe one day we will get a Rogue Squadron. I kind of like it because I like what she's saying. I don't mind that she's, because to me, that's not as frustrating. It'd be more frustrating if she said, we're working on it and it doesn't happen. This is more of a kind of like a, yeah, we could definitely do it at some point. We're not dismissing it. But go ahead. Let me know how you're so frustrated about it.
Let it go. Let it go. Just let it go. For Alex Damon's sake, let the talk of Rogue Squadron just die. If it happens, it happens. But can we just please stop with the it's God, it's getting almost as bad as Ross and Rachel. Like, will they, won't they? Will they, won't they?
Well, here's my question to you though. Somebody asked her about it. What's she gonna do? She's gonna say it's not happening?
Just say it's not happening right now.
That's basically what she did. She said it's not happening right now. It's just still it's not.
But she's also like she's leaving that little crack in the door, and
because that's the truth. The crack is there.
You know what these people are like. They're gonna take this that tiny little crack and use it to try and boot the whole fucking door open.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say this bluntly for that. Not my problem. Not her problem.
I know it's not, but I'm just like,
I want Kathleen Kennedy, if that's what her mindset actually is, if she's saying in her head, we want them to be great. We still want this. I still want this. This is why I look at it. She's looking and saying, I still want this to happen. I want it to be great. So I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm okay with that. I'm happily
to great if you get Tom Cruise involved, like I keep saying.
Well, I'd love that too. Maverick in Star Wars.
TC's busy right now. Patty Jenkins probably ain't going to do it.
Sure.
So
that's the thing. One last bit of news from her. One last bit of quote from her. They asked her about Taika Waititi's movie again. And she said, and this is actually a very specific quote that I understand, like what she's saying, and I'm happy with this. I'm very happy with this quote. Taika is working away. He's just, and he won't get mad at me for saying this, slow. We've got a couple of acts. We need a third. Okay. So she's saying Taika Waititi is still working on it. They don't have a third act, but they have a couple of acts written. That gives you a very specific, he is working on it. This is how far along we are. We're not ready to do it yet. That's why it wasn't announced in Celebration. We need a third act. Because does that mean it could fall apart? Absolutely. But she's being direct and saying, hey, you want to know what's going on? I'm telling you specifically. He's working on it. It's not done. It's not completed. We don't have a viable third act. And he's doing it slowly. And I'm going to let him do it slowly. That's why I'm not announcing it, because it's not ready to be announced yet. I'm okay with that.
Why don't you just get AI to write the third act for him? That was petty. I'm sorry.
I hate you.
That was so petty, but I'm just like, Taika, I'm just like, I expect nothing from Taika anymore, because anytime I do expect something from Taika, I'm like, okay, like something's coming, and then nothing comes of it. But then I don't expect something from Taika, and he comes out with Our Flag Means Death, and I'm like, whoa, that was great. I like the soccer movie that he's got coming out, the Ted Lasso in New Zealand or wherever it's set.
Yes,
like I didn't know he was working on that, but it looks awesome. So I'm just like, Taika, baby, do your thing. I don't want to know. I don't need to know. When it comes out, I'm gonna watch it because it's got Taika. It's like when you were younger and like you would go to the record store and you would buy an album from an artist you have no idea about solely because they're on the same label as another band that you love. If it's got Taika Waititi's name on the tin, I'm gonna watch it.
Got it. You know, I will say there's two things I want to say to you about this whole thing. First of all, the one thing that we do have to make mention is this quote does throw water on the rumor we heard before, the deadline report that Taika Waititi was expecting to shoot this next year. If the writer strike is going on and he's not finished with the third act, I can't see this shooting next year. That's fine. Maybe this was in a perfect world, I want to be shooting this next year because he hopes to finish this year. Maybe that's what Taika Waititi was saying. That's what deadline got a hold of. But
unless they shoot the first two acts
and then we shoot it later on. I can't see that happening at all. That'd be a stupid thing. That'd be really stupid to do. I think Kathleen Kennedy is too good for that to do that. The other thing I will say about this whole thing is, specifically speaking, I mentioned this before. I think Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy have had a talk, and I think Kathleen Kennedy is becoming more of an open book to a degree. She wants to be honest with the people, and I think it's also going to be a case of they probably said, don't announce anything until it's ready or done. Unfortunately, she's got to deal with these things that have already been leaked, that before they've closed off the faucet, so to speak. All this stuff was leaked before. I mean, the Rogue Squadron's on them. They announced it with Patty Jenkins having the big thing. But Taika Waititti was already talked about in various trades. Lando was already talked about in various trades. They actually mentioned Lando as well that was working on. Okay, they've announced that they've talked about it. If somebody asks them a question about it, they have to answer. And I think these feel like honest answers. That's the thing I get. And we can't put the genie back into the bottle at this point. So as much as you don't want to hear anything about Taika Waititi until it's done, if you're going to ask her, I want the honest truth. And that is the honest truth of where we stand as of the moment. Now, we haven't heard anything that she's not letting, like Dave Filoni and her, everybody has been asked about anything else that wasn't announced Celebration that we don't know about. I haven't heard a leak or anything about it potentially yet. And I think that's okay. So if this is out there and she's going to be asked, give me an honest answer. This sounds like an honest answer.
It sounds like an honest answer. I just wonder why these guys ask about shit that's like the stuff that's announced is probably 5 to 10 years in the working. Who knows when all this stuff that got shelved
That's
is even going to start up again. Like, I just don't. Maybe it's because I'm not a journalist. I'm not, yes, I do speak on a podcast on YouTube, but I'm not like one of these like YouTubers.
Right.
Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Maybe it's because I don't have an understanding of that world, but I'm just like, what's the point in asking about these things?
Because of the clicks. Because quite frankly, you could say, here's the news article you have, and you have two news articles. One is Kathleen Kennedy talks about Ahsoka, and it's all stuff we've heard before. Or Kathleen Kennedy answers a rumor that's been going around that we didn't talk about Celebration. We have no idea what's going on. So she's talking about what's Taika Waititi doing. Oh, well, we don't know what's going on with that. So let's see that. It draws attention, and it's honestly too. I honestly like it because, quite frankly, I think if you put the mindset on it, you put the proper mindset on it, it can be fun. This rumor and speculation game, to me, I love it because I love talking about it. I love thinking about what Taika Waititi is going to do in Star Wars. We wouldn't know that if this didn't leak out. I love the idea of it. Now, the problem is when we take that rumor and it becomes expectation, and all of a sudden they start getting mad about it when it doesn't happen.
That's the thing.
That's the problem. But I'm not going to let people that do that get in the way of me going, I want to hear about what Kathleen Kennedy is saying about this because I'm curious. I want to know what's going on. But I would have been a more patient person. So maybe that's something.
You know I love Taika. I voted him when we did that back when we were doing Scoundrels, and we did our top 5 directors working today. Taika was my number one. He still is my number one. I'm just like, don't stop like drip feeding me this. Like, come to me when you got something. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Exactly.
We know we got 2 acts. We got 2 acts out of him. Cool. That kind of stuff. You tell me that Taika's like 2/3 of the way through his movie. Cool. That's I'm all good. But like, keep telling me that like Taika's working. Oh, he's working slowly. Like, yeah, because he's a master storyteller. Like, you don't rush the genius.
And that's what Kathleen Kennedy is actually saying too. She's like, I'm not gonna. He won't mind me saying he's working slow because that's what he does. He's like, it's part and parcel of what she said earlier on. She says we're not going to release things until they're ready, and she's not rushing Taika. It doesn't sound like she's saying, "God damn, Taika's taking forever." This is where we are because Taika's taking his time with it, and I'm okay with that. It's just not ready to announce, and that's why we haven't had an announcement on it. That's great for me. That's fine with me. It means that as long as they're working together and it's still being worked on, then we'll find out more when we find out more. But I'm happy he's still working on it. I'm happy he's still a part of it. To a degree.
Watch it. He'll be asked to leave in a couple weeks, and Damon Lindelof will take over from Taika. God, I'm in a petty mood today.
You are. But you know what? I'll tell you that exactly what I mean. Like, it seems like, at least more recently, Lucasfilm, even in those kind of situations, are not putting out bad press or bad things because, I mean, granted, I know there's people like you want to not burn bridges, but Damon Lindelof in that interview that he gave out didn't make it sound like it was like necessarily the end of the world. He's kind of like, I put it forth. It didn't work out. I'd be happy to try again. If he's happy to try again, that means he didn't have like necessarily a horrible experience with Lucasfilm with it. So
He got the shot, and they're using his script as a framework. That's
right,
more than any like
right,
fan
but
fiction or fan movie that it's been written has been used. So
he's willing to try again. So he's willing to work within the framework
yeah.
again. So that's a good thing to me. So. All right, 2 more pieces of news. I know this is actually a big news show out of nowhere, but I got a couple more pieces I just want to talk based on really quick. Robert Rodriguez was asked about Boba Fett and reflected on the filming of Star Wars shows. It's a great article if you want to read it. The one piece of news I want to talk about here really briefly is they asked him about the future of Boba Fett. Now, Robert Rodriguez has not been involved since the book of Boba Fett. I don't believe, anyway. Didn't do anything with Mandalorian season 3 or anything.
No.
He answered and said, "I can't say. I'm sworn to secrecy. I wish I could tell you. I know all the answers to what you're asking, but I can't say." The only thing I have to say about that is, so there is a future for Boba Fett, which is good to know. Because at this point he's been up in the air since Book of Boba Fett as well. He did not appear in Mando season 3, although he was rumored heavily to be. We had the interview with Tamira Morrison saying it didn't work out that way. It didn't happen. So to me, I'm like, okay, does that mean they've taken that out and maybe they're repurposing his arc for season 4? Are they going to do a Book of Boba Fett season 2? Is he going to appear in Ahsoka? I like the fact that we know, okay, we are getting more from Boba Fett. We just don't know necessarily what it is yet. But I mean, there's a plan for it. That makes me happy.
Okay, so anyone who is playing a video game right now, you got 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go to mute. Boba appears in Jedi Survivor.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if that's what he was referring to.
It's a little cameo, but the fact that he's even involved is like they're obviously doing something
right
with Boba. Otherwise, why the hell would he show up? Like, is he going to show up? Like, they keep talking about Cameron Monaghan getting his own show as Cal. So
maybe it's something there. Maybe it's a future Cal Kestis story with Boba Fett involved. That'd be kind of cool too. And it's fine either way. I don't have to worry about it necessarily. I just like the fact that we have a future for Boba Fett. That I mean, there's something planned that we don't know about, and therefore we're going to see him again. That's all I care about. He's not in the great yonder in the abyss where we just don't know anything's going to happen yet. He's not.
As long as Tamor's around, there'll always be Boba.
Fair enough. Okay, last bit of news we're going to talk about today. The acolyte Leslie Headland expanded on her elevator pitch. She said, it was sort of a joke, but it was my elevator pitch to Kathleen Kennedy. I want to take that revisionist version of female villains that you see in fairy tale media and tell it through that lens. When I was a young queer girl, I was just hanging out with Ursula the Sea Witch from Little Mermaid. As a queer girl growing up, if you don't identify with the heroes, the villains show up and they're all queer coded, you're like, yes, that's me. Now, as a queer filmmaker, you're going to see some camp inevitably, but I would say that tonally, our references are darker. I like this quote. I think this is actually a good quote. I can kind of see where she's coming from on multiple angles. Yes, I've always loved the revisionist tales of characters. Like there's Wicked. I'm talking about Wicked Witch, the story about Wicked Witch of the West. There's always kind of more recent takes on fairy tale where we get a look at the villain side of things, so to speak. I've always loved those kind of different takes on things. Is it going to be a little campy? I'm okay with camp in Star Wars as long as it's done to a proper degree, and it sounds like she is. It's a little bit campy, but it's also going to be a dark version of that. And I think it's a perfect quote for me. I like where this is going for Acolyte. What are your thoughts on that?
Campy is good. I like campy.
Mm-hmm.
But if everything is so dark and miserable and brooding all the time, like, cool, I'll go watch Andor. But injecting a little bit of camp in your villain just means it gives them a little bit of extra je ne sais quoi.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say this is supposed to be a dark story. I've always heard, but we don't need everything. Not everything dark needs to be.
It can't rain all the time.
Right. That's good. Great quote. Great movie. Finally, I just want to say we had a couple of descriptions of the Acolyte characters, which was nice. We started with Stenberg's character, who has described the Empire as Joan of Arc meets Gogo Yubari, who is the 17-year-old character from Kill Bill.
He's Joan of. All right,
that's interesting, right? Stenberg added that the character has clay rolled dreadlocks, which is a North African reference. And the territory would have been also revealed. Manny Jacinto as a Jedi Knight, Dean Charles Chapman as a Jedi with great hair, and Daphne Keene as a Thelan Jedi, half alien, half human, who Keene described as David Bowie meets Star Wars. I have a little mullet, I have horns. It's cute.
David Bowie is Star Wars. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
I love it. I love it. And finally, the interesting thing that headlined about this was that we're talking about the being in the High Republic, where the High Republic is where the Jedi are at their height. They're powerful. They're most powerful. He says, when you're doing something completely original like we are, you want to question the status quo of the era that you live in. What I think is so interesting right now is that everybody thinks that they're right. The Jedi really think that they're right. And George tells us that they're wrong in Phantom Menace. They've missed a huge aspect of the Dark Side Rising. That just felt like fertile ground to look into what's going on for all of us right now. It seems like exactly what I want from this piece, where the Jedi are at their height, but yet we know what's coming. We know that the fall is coming. We know Palpatine's coming. And the Dark Side is rising.
Smack down where they should be.
And the Jedi are not doing necessarily the right thing. That fall has happened gradually. We're going to get a little bit to see a little bit about that. So I am psyched about that. And that is our last bit of news. And here we are, an hour into the episode. We could have just had a news episode.
A lot of freaking news.
All this stuff going on.
I wasn't expecting that much. When you were like, I got 5 or 6 pieces. I was just like, okay, cool.
Well, you can't shut me up. That's the problem. But let's get into
I'm not trying to shut you up.
Let's get to our meat and potatoes of the day. Our main.
Well, if anything, this is now the sprinkling. This is the season.
All right, then, Matty, why don't you head it off? This is your topic. Talk about the Glup Shittos and what your first choice is to talk about.
So for those who are, just tuning in a little bit later, may have, want to be like, guys, get to the fucking news. We want to listen to you guys talk Star Wars. Glup Shittos are, just as a reference, they're like tertiary characters that make an appearance here or there. They don't have an overarching story arc. They're not very prevalent characters, but you see them in the background. You're like, hey, that guy looks cool. Hey, that guy's pretty funny. That's my new favorite character, like a Lobot or a Biggest Darklighter, or hell, even B2 Emo. He's not on my list. He probably should have been, but he's not. because to me, he is an essential character. He's not a Glup Shitto. And this is what we're saying. Like, there's varying degrees of Glup Shitto. Like, to me, B2 Emo is an essential character.
Yeah.
To someone else, to Joe Average, Jabba the Hutt might be a Glup Shitto.
Yeah.
So,
or even Hondo Ohnaka. He's not on
Ohnaka.
either of our lists because we think he's too important to be a Glup Shitto.
Hondo is Hondo is Star Wars, so obviously he's not going to make either of our lists. But we have 5, and then we also have honorable mentions. I'll start with my honorable mention, which is TT-8L, which is the droid at the front door of Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi.
I love him. I love that character.
The one that pops out and he's like, Hujima Pinky. Anytime he pops out, I laugh my ass off. It's hilarious, just like the way he sounds. I would love to go back and watch the VO sessions of whoever did that, because I would be dying.
Ooh, my dog wants to hear more about that too, I guess.
Yeah.
And I will give up one of my honorable mentions as well. Also from the original trilogy, as a young boy watching Star Wars, actually watching The Empire Strikes Back, I loved the bounty hunter scene. We got all these colorful characters, and I loved I wanted to know more about them. And when we've gotten to know a little bit about more in the canon, I want to get more though. Give me Dengar anytime. I love Dengar.
Ah, great
Dengar.
choice. Great.
Something about his costume. Yeah. He's like this larger guy who I definitely, being a bigger guy myself, tend to aspire to. He got this mummy thing on his head. So I'm like, what's going on underneath there? How did he get this head injury? What is this character? In the expanded universe, he had a couple of stories where he was really kind of lesser intelligence, and then we've seen him in canon a little bit. But I want to know more about this bounty hunter, and every time he comes back, he makes me smile. A little bit of a scoundrel himself. Give me a Dengar Disney Plus series, or at least a bounty hunter series, and he can be a big focus of. So that's my honorable mention for the Glup Shitto.
Nice. Okay, so we go to our number 5, right?
Let's do it.
Mine is this literally happens with 2 seconds. This is a 2-second moment in A New Hope, or Star Wars, if you want to be really nerdy about it. It's the stormtrooper when the door goes up. The stormtrooper that hits his head and then just keeps walking. He doesn't have a name. He doesn't have like a TK number. It's the guy just like as they're walking through, and you just see him like hit his head, and you know George was just like, no, keep that. That stays in.
I love it. This is one of my favorite bits about A New Hope growing up. I used to point out to fans like who haven't seen it a million times like I had, like, wait, watch this. Oh, but that is a Glup Shittos if I've ever heard one, considering his Wikipedia article is unidentified head bumping stormtrooper. That's actually literally the entry.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a Glup Shittos. I do want to know more about this guy. Is this guy like the guy who's failing on? He like just barely passed PT. He just barely passed.
And it also feeds into the line of Leia to Luke. Leia's first line to Luke. Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?
This guy's pretty tall.
This guy's pretty tall. Is there like a height requirement?
It also keys into one of Rex's lines from Rebels. I can't see in this thing.
Yep.
That is a great Glup Shittos. Maybe one day we'll get a bonus. Like, I don't know if we can get a Disney Plus series, but let's get like maybe a comic book about him, or a moment in a book where we figure out who this guy is and why did he hit his head.
I just need a shot of like a stormtrooper in the infirmary, like complaining that like he hit his head.
I am all here for it. I love it so much. Okay, for myself, then my number 5. I didn't really rank them, but one of my 5 exactly comes from Return of the Jedi. We're going all original trilogies so far, interesting enough. I want more. He has no lines, but his face speaks 1,000 words. Return of the Jedi, Malakili from Jabba's palace.
I knew it.
The poor Rancor keeper who just loves a good boy. His Rancor is a good boy. I mean, Luke, the villainous Luke Skywalker, kills a poor, helpless Rancor creature and destroys Malakili's pet. I feel for him as a pet owner. He just wants to hug his good boy one more time.
That definitely is one of the moments that I look back whenever I watch Return of the Jedi now. Like, even when I went to watch it on the big screen the other day, like, I knew that moment was coming where you just see him just like fall to his knees and start crying. I was like, dude, imagine if like that was, me with my dog or something, and like someone just took a lightsaber to my dog. I would be like, oh, dude, like that is someone's pet.
Right.
And like, now if that had been Danny Trejo, it would have been a different story. Luke Skywalker would have been on the end of a machete.
Would have been all done. Absolutely. I kind of feel like Malakili is related to Danny Trejo somehow along the line. Somewhere along the line, Danny Trejo is a distant relation somehow, just direct descendant. I don't know. But,
I love that we're calling him
cousin.
Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo is in Star Wars.
The Shetty in Star Wars, basically. It's funny because we have seen Malakili has come back once. He was in the Aftermath series, I think, in Life Debt, I believe he was, where he's wandering the desert. He was like thinking about committing suicide. He was that upset about it, but eventually he was rescued by Cobb Vanth, and he found his way again. So he found his way, reunited with the head chef at Jabba's palace.
Imagine if they do a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett and they go to Freetown and Malakili is there with Cobb Vanth.
Oh, that'd be great. That's where you know what? We had Book of Boba Fett with the Rancor thing. Maybe that's where the Rancor went. Maybe Malakili found a new person to love at that point, a new pet. Well, that's my number 5. Let's move on to your number 4.
My number 4, I have to shout out the originator of the inspiration for Hondo Watch. And this person is solely on my list because of this one Twitter account.
Oh boy.
Shout out to Veers Watch. General Veers is my number 4. Solely now because of Veers Watch. Shout out to Veers Watch. Every time that there is an Imperial like base or something on screen, I'm looking for Veers. I'm looking for General Veers.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know what? I gotta say, this is a perfect guy for me as well. Because quite frankly, he is the one Imperial that won. He never loses in the saga. We never see him. We only see him win the Battle of Hoth, basically, to do his job perfectly well and do it very much in without like passion, without like he just coldly, cruelly, calculatingly taking on the rebellion and defeating him.
Did a better job than Needa did.
Absolutely. He lived through it. We don't see that too many people who actually made it through Star Wars without Darth Vader killing him.
Let alone made it through the Empire.
Without Vader killing him or whatever for failing. Because he never failed. Where was he in Return? If Veers was around during the Battle of Endor, we might have seen a different outcome.
Exactly. So shout out to General Veers. Shout out to Veers Watch. That's my number 4.
I'm okay with that. I'm going to speak of a military guy myself in this way, but I am going to jump forward a little bit. We are going to be going on to The Last Jedi, Captain Moden Kennedy.
Wow.
He serves as a naval officer in the Empire and the First Order. He's best known for being the guy that was in the big old ship, the Fulminatrix, I believe. The Fulminatrix, who was in the Battle of Dakar, that he ends up getting destroyed by the Resistance bombing run that Poe Dameron leads. But I love this dude's attitude the whole time. He's this really gruff guy. He's just like the whole time you can see he's this crotchety old man, but he's a firm, tough. You know that he is extremely like Veers. He feels like he is extremely competent, but he's surrounded by incompetence.
You wish he was played by Ed Harris, don't you?
I do. I kind of feel like this is Ed Harris in Star Wars, pretty close to it. He gets the whole point. He's like, "What are we waiting for? Fire on the base!" And then he's like, "They're not." He's got all these quotes. It's all about, "Oh my God, you are idiots. This is what these guys are doing. Obviously, they're doing it." And when he dies, when he explodes, he has a great look at it, just kind of like, "Of course." Poor guy deserved better. He's good at his job. He's competent at his job. Maybe if he was around by the time Exegol happened, maybe he could have done a better job in control. He just never made it high enough on the pecking list.
Nice.
All right, that's 2 for me. How about you? Let's go for more.
Mine, we are going all the way back to the Phantom Menace.
Okay.
And this is a character that has bled over into my personal life whenever I am playing Call of Duty with my friends and I call for one of them to throw a grenade, or they call for me to throw a grenade. They go, we always say this one line, "Jar Jar, usin da boomer." And then we go, "Misa no have a boomer." That has worked because we are children of the prequel era. That has worked its way into our vocabulary to when we are playing Call of Duty. We are quoting Captain Topples.
I love it. He's had a few moments. He did get an honorable death in the Clone Wars, so we won't get a future story from him unless we're going to have some time during episode 1, between episode 1 and episode 2. But I do love Tarples for exactly the same reason. He's a little harsh to Jar Jar in episode 1, but he turns it around. No giving up, General Jar Jar. We need to think of something before he.
He's a true general. He's a true war hero, a real leader. And the fact that line, "You said a boomer, Misa no have a boomer," like that has everyone who's like says that Jar Jar was like silly and everything. That is the impact that Jar Jar has had on my generation. The fact that I am now saying that while playing Call of Duty with my friends.
It's funny you mentioned that, I gotta say, because I actually also went to episode 1 for my third pick in Phantom Menace. I also went to the Gungans for that.
Oh,
I'm just gonna go with the big boy. Hey. I like my big boys in Star Wars. Give me Boss Rugar Nass as my Glup Shittos. I mean, he's probably got my favorite quote in the Phantom Menace.
Good. I did see. Shout out to our friend Molly Damon. She put up the tweet of
How dare you? How dare you? I actually did it before she did. If my tweet did
I was gonna give you the credit of you putting it. I saw her post first. What is a Star Wars line that carries over during sex? And then I saw you quote tweet it with Boss Nass essentially motorboating.
I love Molly David. I actually thought it was funny because I know she didn't see my, she wasn't copying it or anything like that. I saw her do it. I'm like, that's awesome. She had the same thought that I did.
Mine was negative. It didn't go in. It just impacted on the surface.
Oh boy, well, there's a lot of great things on that day. There's a lot of moments on that. But yeah, that's what it is for Boss Nass and me. Even motorboating aside, actually has an innocent side to it as well. Like my kids loved that growing up when I showed them the Phantom Menace. They always, can you do that Boss Nass thing? And I would do it for them. I just love the fact that he's so big.
Now I need to hear your Boss Nass.
I can't even do that. I just the motorboating thing.
Oh,
thinking it was greater than Gungans.
You sir.
We saw liking this. Maybe we saw being friends.
I love how your interpretation of Boss Nass is like Italian mob boss. Like, hey.
That's how I see him. That's really kind of how I see him. That's what he is. He's just like an affable guy. He's big. He's boisterous. He's not. He's a smart guy, but he kind of controls.
It's the hand movements you were doing. You were like,
so like it. Give me a Boss Nass Godfather story. I'll be all good for it. So
that would be great.
Give me it. All right. I love Boss Nass. I do. I've always loved him. I've always put the great Brian Blessed. What a great character. What a fun character he is. I wish we get more. But alrighty then. Let's move on to your next one.
My number 2. I would not be a true Star Wars fan if this alien was not on my list. Shout out the great Brian Ward. My number 2 is Dexter Jettster.
Oh, I didn't put him in there specifically because I didn't want to step on Ryan Ward's toes, but I appreciate you doing that because, God damn it, I love this character.
Dex is, I have always said I want a Gordon Ramsay style Hell's Kitchen show with Dex being or like like an Anthony Bourdain style show where Dex just goes all around the galaxy, like trying different like food samples. But it's the fact that he has such great lines in there of like the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And when you're a kid, you don't think about that.
Right.
And when you get older and you rewatch it, you're like, oh, like that. When I rewatched it when I was older, I understood that a lot more. Like back when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, whatever that. What does that even mean? They're both the same thing. They're not the same thing. Knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. And then they go into the books and they expand on his stories. Like they expand on, his entire back. He's essentially a war hero.
Yeah, he really is. I love it.
Obi-Wan used to like sneak out of the temple to go eat in Dex's diner because the food was better than the slop they were serving in the temple.
100%. I will say that what I love about him is 2 things. First of all, I agree. Like he's the perfect kind of Glup Shitto to have because you meet him in episode 2, you only get him for 5-10 minutes, and yet you feel like there's such history there. That character has such history. He made such an impact in 10 minutes that he could appear in anything like, oh, great, let's see more about Dex. Let's see more about this. And let me just throw something at you. I want to pitch this to Brian Ward as well. Hopefully, maybe he'll do something with it. But who knows? This is the kind of guy. Can you picture Dex and Hondo going together somewhere, like working a mission together somewhere? Come on, those 2 together would be freaking gold. Would be freaking gold.
I imagine Dex would get pretty annoyed with him pretty quick.
Yep, and he would probably put Hondo's place, but Hondo would just sneak out of it somehow, as he always does, and he'd annoy Dex, but he'd get him at the end. I love Dex quite a bit. That's a great pick. I'm here for it. Shout out.
He was the one. He was the one that I was like, okay, I got some pretty obscure stuff on here. He's the one that I'm like, he has to be on one of our lists. So I'm glad that one of us picked him.
Fair enough. Okay, next up for me, I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but I said I'm going to do it anyway. I thought we were getting him back in Mandalorian. It turns out we didn't. You just got to remember some members of his species. It's Babu Freak. Babu Freak, the best new character from Rise of Skywalker, and the fact that we get them in the Mandalorian with the things with
Bad
baby, no squeezy. I love how he speaks. I love everything about him. I think this guy could be a shining star in anything you put him in. He's humor. He's wonderful. Give me more of Babu Freak. And actually, I would love to see, quite honestly, I would love to see, and I'm being completely honest about not like joking around product wise. I would love to see a Spice Runners of Kajimi like special or something like that, maybe like a short mini series when you got like, with Babu together alongside all the other Spice Runners we get. Maybe even they have a scene with Poe or something like that. Because they actually have Zori Bliss and Babu together. Be such fun. That'd be such fun. Some scoundrelous activity. We love scoundrels on here. I think that's the problem. We just want every scoundrel we want to have the show.
You know the best place to do it? The best place to do an Anzellan story?
Where?
Vision season 3.
Yeah, let's do it. I like that idea. Give me a special with Zori Bliss and Babu Freak together.
Or just like go to the Anzellan homeworld and we just have like a whole short with Anzellans.
Babu Freak comes home and it's all about how they communicate. I'm all here for you. Yes. The homecoming.
Or young Babu leaving home. And it's like a short talking about like being young and going off into Lucasfilm. Call me. I know like you can't really have writers in a minute, but
when you can. When you can. Done, let me know. I got a piece for you. Perfect. I love it. All right. What is your final Glup Shitto of the day?
This one, I had to go back to obscure. This is my favorite Glup show of all time. Okay. And they appear in one scene.
Okay.
In a newer TV show.
Okay.
The Jawas are my favorite.
I knew you were going there. I'm here for. I'm sorry. Go on.
The Jawas are my favorite creatures in Star Wars. They remind me, as I say, they are space bikies. They remind me of so many people that I knew growing up, going to Sunday car boots, just trying to flog their wares that are either broken, stolen, probably both. Taika the Jawa going into Obi-Wan Kenobi's cave with his own part from his own condenser, going in with his own condenser, trying to sell it back to him and saying the iconic line of cleaning costs extra. Not only are they admitting they stole it, they're saying, if you want it back cleaner than I'm bringing it back, you got to pay me more. Yeah, it belongs to you, but you got to pay me more if you want me to clean it up for you. And I keep pitching this. Give me Antica Roadshow, which is just Taika and the Jawas on the Sandcrawler, going through the galaxy, just like flogging their wares. Like a Jawa is like trying to sell, and it's like an episode of Porn Stars, porn, PAW, not porn, where they're like, okay, so let's like Watto's trying to sell something, and he's like, hold on, let me bring in my expert, and then Taika the Jawa comes walking in.
I love it. I'm all in it. Perfect. That's perfect. I loved it as well. I knew you were going to go there. Kind of as soon as you said Glup Shittos, I'm like, this is a whole episode, so we can talk about Taika, isn't it? And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because he was one of my favorite parts of Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. Just a funny little aspect to him. It's a nice little addition to it. I agree. Let's get more.
I wonder. Kenobi's cave was pretty empty when he came back.
He cleaned it out. Yeah, did Obi-Wan clean it up, or did he clean it out? He just cleaned it out. He's like, this guy's not coming back. Fuck this guy.
I think, yeah, that's probably what it was. They probably went bust. He was like, haha, the fucking space wizard's gun. Just
All right, fair enough. Okay, so I guess it's up to me to finish out the Glup Shittos, our favorite Glup Shittos. This is one of my favorite of all time. No pressure. I get it. To me, I'm going back to the prequels again for one of my favorites of all time. We don't know really what happened to him after Obi-Wan Kenobi told him to go home and rethink his life. It is, of course, Ellen Sleaze-Bagano. Because of the name like Sleaze-Bagano, that's my kind of guy.
It is so George Lucas to call someone who sells drugs sleazebag.
Sleaze Pagano.
Which is just sleaze bag, just with a few more words onto it.
The sleaze bag in this, like he's a hobbit almost, but he's a sleaze bag. I like the whole comparison. I guess on Wikipedia, he is actually given the name Ellen Celisabagno, also known as Ellen Sleaze Pagano. But I'm always going to call him Ellen Sleaze Pagano because that's what he is to me. And I want to see him come back. I think he was a funny character, a great moment in episode 2. I kind of want to know a little bit more about him. I know he's a little drug dealer.
He should have come back in Kenobi. He should have come back in Obi-Wan.
So perfect. Because I want to know, did he go home and rethink his life? How much did he rethink his life? Did he become a changed person? Is he a new guy now? Or did he eventually fade off?
You know who I would swap out? And this is no shade to O'Shea Jackson Jr. Imagine if his character had been Elon Sleaze Pagano and he was the one that was like ferrying the children back for the hidden path.
Right.
Like he went home.
Because
then like it would have been a Jedi told him to turn his life around. So he goes and turns his life around by helping Jedi.
That actually, it was such a great character moment. I love that idea. Because actually my mind went to Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. I always said maybe is Kumail Nanjiani, is he like a descendant of Elon Sleaze Pagano? Like he's got together with someone after he thought his life, and Kumail's a good guy. He's a smart guy. He's a little bit of comment. Can't shake his past entirely. But yeah, that's what I thought too, though, man. So that's Elon Sleaze Pagano has always been a fun reference to me. I always like that's one of my favorite parts about that's one of my favorite scenes in episode 2 when he comes up and does that. So that's it for me. That's why
the fact that his name is Elon Sleazebag.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, that is going to be our list of Glup Shittos. Let us know what your Glup Shitto list is. What are your favorites? Leave them in the comments for us. While you're there, click that like, click that subscribe. Let us know you're here. Join us at PLD Projects. That's what we do here. We try to have a lot of fun here. We're building out the channel. We have a modest goal of 500 subscribers. We're up to about 409 now, so we are making our way up the charts. We need your help. And if you want to support the channel even further, patreon.com/PLD Projects. Join such stalwart companions such as Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Matty Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, and John Lustrino. We couldn't do this without you. You helped keep us the lights on.
You know who is a scoundrel?
Who?
Out of that list, that Austin Cadell.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely a scoundrel. I'll tell you that much. He definitely is a scoundrel. Hard score. But love that guy. Love all of you. You are really wonderful people. We have a great time together, so I really appreciative of your support. But Matty, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram at Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, Mourner, on all DSPs. You can find me here every week for Holy Snokes and every other week for Class Action.
Absolutely. That's where we are. You can find me on this channel all the time. I'm on Class Action with Matty over here. I do 2 mediocre white dudes on film with PJ Campbell. I had a great episode yesterday that came out. Check it out on the channel. We did 2 mediocre white dudes on Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And of course, next time we're doing the whole franchise, getting ready for Dial of Destiny, which we will cover as well.
I need to start rewatching that because that's soon, huh? That's next month, right?
June 30th is when Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny comes out. We're going to be there.
I need to start watching.
I also do my Queen podcast on my sister channel, which is PLD Projects Crown Jewels. I did 39 came out last time. Now we got a little song called Sweet Lady coming out this week as well.
Oh, I like that song.
It's a good fun song. It's definitely a fun slow burner rocket track. They don't have a lot of straight rock tracks on A Night at the Opera because they do a lot of eccentric stuff on there, which obviously they throw the kitchen sink at it and everything. But this is a good forward rock track.
Kitchen sink. They threw the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink, the toilet.
That's right. Everything they could throw at it, they could. Whatever they get their hands on, where they could rip out of the walls, they threw it at this point. See what stuck. That's true. I also have some Queen remixes I do on there as well. So if you want to take a look at those are some fun songs as well.
Just let me know when you get to The Show Must Go On.
Oh, I will. Oh, I definitely will. I know you love that one, and I can't blame you for that.
Favorite song of all time.
I can completely understand why. It's one of my favorites as well. Top favorites as well. And finally, I'll pitch Harrison's is coming back in late June, and Review, my V podcast, has started strongly. Lego looking back at the sci-fi classic. We have aired the first 2 episodes. We are now recording episodes regarding V: The Final Battle, a 3-part sequel miniseries, and we'll go from there. I think that's everything. So that's good enough for me. So let's get out of here. Next week, we're not sure yet what we're doing. I'm going to pitch something to Matty as soon as we close up shop, and I'll let you know as soon as I know. I think if we go with this, it's going to be a good one. But you have to stay tuned and find out what that is. But until next time, everybody.
May the Force be with you. Always.